All right, we're back. Good afternoon and welcome to the 172nd episode of the Georgia Farm Bureau Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. It's Wednesday. We got a big weekend coming up with the first round of the state playoffs, and today's guests are going to be Hampton head coach Chad Ashley. They are a fairly young program. I believe this is just their 9th season, and they have already posted a school record 7-3 finish, and they're going to play Holy Innocents in the first round. We had Coach Winter on Monday, so that'll be a really big game for them, a great opportunity, and I'm excited to see what Coach Ashley has to say about the Hornets. I'm going to spin the second segment. Might talk a little bit about the basketball rankings released yesterday, and also just go over some of the playoffs, some of the brackets that I didn't get to go over on Monday, and then our final guest is going to be North Murray head coach Preston Poag, and they are in 2A. They come out of a Region 7 that I think really played outstanding this year, Rockmart Model, who they actually beat, and then Fannin County, and they're going to be playing Fellowship Christian in the first round. That is a very intriguing matchup. They had a chance to actually win the region in their season finale against Rockmart, but they fell short. They're down to the 4 seed, but I still like their chances. They have Seth Griffith, an outstanding cast of offensive playmakers, and they're lighting it up. So they're having a great season. I think they're a dangerous 4 seed, but we'll go ahead and get things started with Coach Ashley as soon as we get him on. So you look at kind of what it was like when he first got there in 2014. They maybe had 30 guys coming out for that football team. They were in 4A, my classification that I covered, and I remember they came out, went 0-9 that first year, only averaged about 5 points per game, gave up 40 points per game. So that first year, a very obviously important year just to get the day-to-day going, play the schedule, but it was tough. And then they went 0-10 the next season, averaged just 7 points a game. They went 1-9, won their first game in year 3, another 1-9 season, 4-6 in 2018, and then 5-6 made the playoffs in 2019. So this 7-3 start, it's really strong. They've been in 4A the last 5 years. They did go up to 5A temporarily in 2016, 2017. But they've got some big wins for sure. And I think when we had Coach Winter on, he said it best. He was like, yeah, this Hampton team, not only are they having their best season ever, but they beat Central Carroll this year, who is a really good football team. I'm talking a team that can make a run in this year's playoffs. So that right there sold it for me. I'm like, we got to get Coach Ashley on and talk about this matchup. Rusty Manziel's in the building. Let me ask Rusty a question. We're live on the air. Rusty, what do you think about the Hampton and Holy Innocents matchup?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we had Coach Winter on, and he pointed out that Hampton beat Central Carroll this year. I think that was a pretty strong win.
Central Carroll's got a really good kick committed to South Carolina. They have a freshman running back that Georgia just offered, so I know that's a big win.
Yep. So, yeah, Central Carroll, he's mentioned some guys that have those Power 5 offers. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Then, of course, Holy Innocents runs the triple option. So that's going to be an interesting test for them. But you look at the rest of their schedule, they did lose to Lovett before their season finale against Luella. We, of course, are going to be televising the Lovett and Westminster playoff game. They have met 38 times in their history, but this will be the first time in the playoffs. They already played this season. It's going to be a tremendous rivalry game that will be at Lovett. And so we're excited about that. Lovett's 6-4 heading into that. They've both played extremely good football this year. So we got a lot going on. It's great to have Rusty in here as well. They're going to start working on the Georgia Elite Classic, which is going to be in December after the season. And we've got an exciting new feature to this year's games. Usually we have the senior game where the seniors either play the juniors or it's just a senior-specific game. But this year it's going to be the Georgia seniors versus the Alabama seniors. So that's going to be really exciting to have two states coming in. That's something we had to kind of lay the groundwork for. Mark Fleetwood, the old Peachtree Ridge coach, who is now over, I think, at Vestiva Hills or something like that over in Alabama. He's going to be coaching the Alabama team. So I'm excited about that. They're going to be working on that. Also, I wanted to point out, while we're trying to get Coach Ashley on, Najee and I had our show yesterday. We debuted it, Underrated and Overlooked, and thought it was a very interesting conversation. We started out talking high school football in the first segment. Really went deep into the different brackets, kind of who our sleepers were, who we thought was going to come out of each quadrant. Talked about Buford. They're in that same bottom left with teams like Carrollton and Walton. Can those teams pull off a win over them? But then when we went to the college conversation, I thought that was interesting. Najee has been calling it spot on with some of these predictions. He called LSU winning this last week against Alabama. He called Georgia beating Tennessee bad. He was spot on. I know some people on social media didn't like his takes, said he was a hater, but he was really right. And so we kind of went into his thought process on how he made those predictions. So I think it was really interesting. You can check it out on our social media, and also it's in the Apple Store now. So we have it audio only and our Score Atlanta YouTube page. And then in the final segment, we did talk a little bit NFL. And I've got to say, Najee he calls himself a football nerd, but man, he really knows his stuff. And I just thought it was so interesting hearing kind of what he saw weaknesses in the teams, and that's obviously what has allowed him to be so great at predicting some of these games of the week. But I think it's an interesting hour that we had yesterday. Help build off kind of what we do with this show right here. We talked a lot about Ladd McConkey, his recruitment process, his kind of big role he's stepping into at Georgia this year in that receiver position. And, of course, we'll have his former head coach on later in the show with Coach Poag at North Murray. And then also, when we were having that NFL conversation, I tried to take more of a 30,000-foot view of it, kind of talked about the bigger trends that I see happening where the contracts are going to change. We're going to start seeing more players move around, kind of like the NBA, where it's no longer going to be guys with some team for a decade. A lot more movement, and Najee had great insight on that. So I was interested to hear what he thought, and so you guys can check that out once again. But let's talk a little bit about Hampton's season. They have a senior quarterback, Connor Tolley, who came out really strong, and he got them off to a blazing 4-0 start. Once again, prior to this season, their highest ever win total was 5 games in 2019. And so Connor Tolley comes out 13 of 19 passing, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 17 carries, 117 yards, 3 touchdowns. So he counts for 5 touchdowns in the season opener. You have Christian Kindle chipping in at running back, and then Cameron Goggins has been the top receiver. He had 6 catches, 107 yards in that opener. So then same sort of thing. Connor Tolley comes out against McIntosh. That's a team that we've seen getting a lot of shootouts this year. Their defense might not necessarily be the best in that classification, but they held their own in a shootout. But Hampton pulled away 56-48, and once again, 5 touchdowns from Connor Tolley. And I'm mentioning Connor specifically for a reason, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, Connor, 11 of 23, 212 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, and 19 carries, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns, showing his athleticism with that 5-touchdown performance. You had Christian Kindle, 14 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. And then Amari Jones had a big game as well, running the ball, 7 carries, 97 yards, a touchdown. And the receiver Cameron Goggins, 7 catches, 193 yards, and he caught all 3 of those touchdowns. So then the Central Carroll win, which you talked about how big they've been this year in 4A, just playing really great football. They come out of that really tough region with the Cedar Towns, Heritage, Catoosa, teams like that. And so in that one against Central Carroll, they end up outscoring them 15-13 in the fourth quarter to pull away with the 1-point win. And we really saw Connor Tolley have a huge day running the ball. They struggled to pass. And when I say struggle, I mean struggle. So they had 4 of 23 completions in that Central Carroll game. 4 of 23, 90 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But then he took a season-high 27 carries, 140 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And then Krishan Kendall also had a big day on the ground. That's kind of the strategy they had to use against Central Carroll to pull away with that. 18 carries, 232 yards, including a 76-yard touchdown as a team. 49 carries, 370 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then sophomore Leonel Mann, he's their strong safety. He had an interception. And then the next week against Woodland Stockbridge to open the region, he had 2 interceptions. So he's stepped up. He's been leading them. They've been producing a lot of turnovers. And once again, this is a Hampton team that their highest previous win total was 5 games. So you see Connor Tolley at quarterback has been great. If a team is taking away the pass, he's able to basically not take the handoffs, but tuck it and run, or in the design, 27 carries. That's huge. You don't see quarterbacks that typically aren't in some like triple option or wishbone or whatever go for that many carries. So he's obviously a tough guy. And then that Woodland Stockbridge, that's a 41-7 win to open up the season. That caps that 7-0 start. 4-0 start. And he had 7 of 12 passing, more modestly in that one, 50 yards, just 1 interception, and then 18 carries, 124 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then I mentioned Leonel Mann had the 2 picks, and then another big game from Krishan Kendall, 15 carries, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. So then they hit this stretch in the region. Things start to get a little tough for them. They fall to Stockbridge. That's a team that I've talked about. Najee has talked about it. They are definitely being slept on in Class 4A this year. Stockbridge is able to come away with a 49-2 win in that one. Just basically shut them down, passing the ball. I think this was the game where Connor Tolley, the quarterback I've been talking about, went down because Michael Caldwell came in. And so as a duo in that game, 7 of 20 passing, 119 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So 4-0 start, and then you come out and kind of get humbled by Stockbridge. As I mentioned, they end up losing 49-2. They had 30 carries for 110 yards, obviously no touchdowns. So then the following week, they played Pace Academy, who was really having a strong season as well in their 4A debut. They'll come up a lot when we're talking about Westminster and Lovett on Friday because that's a common opponent. Pace Academy actually beat Westminster for the first time in school history this year, and they've had a really strong season under Coach Nick Back. And so against Pace, they fall 33-7. Kind of a slow start in that one as well. But as I mentioned, their quarterback Connor Tolley was not in the game, so Michael Caldwell came in, 6 of 12 passing, 83 yards, no touchdowns, but then he does not have that running ability that Connor Tolley has where he can take 15, 27, or 20 carries. And so I think in that game he was only 3 carries for -3 yards. So that really hurt them playing a team like Pace without their senior quarterback in. Krishan Kendall, he had a strong game though, 88 rushing yards. And then the following week against Mount Zion Carroll though, Connor was back. So that is good news. He came out, I think he was probably not necessarily easing into the injury because they did build a big lead, so he was able to rest. But he definitely was back. 5'9", 74 yards passing, a touchdown, and also 4 carries, 38 yards. And just with Connor Tolley back there, you saw more success from Krishan Kendall, 8 carries, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then Amari Jones also back, 8 carries, I think it was 95 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then big performance defensively by Ryan Perry. He had a pair of sacks. So that got them back on track. The 2-game losing streak, Stockbridge mentioned the 3 turnovers. The next week against Pace, they don't have their quarterback, Connor Tolley, but then he gets back in it. They win 36-0. You see how important it is to have him out there. So 36-0 the next week. 41-0 against McDonough. That's a fellow Henry County school that actually has had a really, difficult season. They've played well, but they did have a 4-6 finish. But I thought they were a team that could have potentially earned a spot in the postseason. They did start strong. But, yeah, so we didn't see McDonough. What I'm basically trying to say is we didn't see many teams beating them like that, 41-0. So it shows that Hampton was at their full strength then, and the following week they fell to Lovett 42-20. Lovett finished second in the region to Stockbridge. They were definitely an outstanding team. I'm excited to see them play Westminster again in the playoffs, see if they can beat them again. But they followed it up, 21-3 win over Luella to earn the 4 seed behind 3rd seed Pace. So you look overall at their season, when they're healthy, they're playing great. So I think if Connor Tolley's there, it's going to be a really interesting matchup against Holy Innocents. In Holy Innocents, we had Coach Winter on. He talked about the triple option. He talked about how they've only turned it over 6 times this season and have produced 30 turnovers, plus 24 in the turnover margin. And then, as I mentioned, the triple option, they never know who's going to get the ball. It's just a true system offense that has helped them earn the region title in their 4A debut. So that's one of the games we will be tracking for sure. Friday night on the bottom of our ticker, because it does kind of pertain to Westminster and Lovett, just another 4A game in that bracket. And I do really think it is going to be intriguing, and just wanted to congratulate Hampton and Coach Ashley on having this historic season, 7-3. I mean, that's been a tough 9 years to build to this point. Mentioned they lose, I think, their first 23 games out the gates, only scoring 5.8 points per game their first season, only having 30 players on the roster. So it's really exciting that they've been able to come in, compete in a really difficult region, and earn that playoff spot. So we will see if they can really shake things up and pull off something on Friday against the Golden Bears, but that will be an interesting one to watch for sure. So congrats to the Hornets on earning that playoff spot, but we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection that farmers needed. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are our Farm Bureau.
All right, welcome back. So I want you guys to go to scoreatl.com if you want to see the preseason basketball rankings that got posted yesterday. Very, very interesting. And Najee Wilkins tomorrow on Keeping It Real with Najee Wilkins. He's going to be covering a lot of just the girls' basketball season, previewing it, talking to their coaches, and that is going to be at 2 o'clock, right? Yep, 2 o'clock tomorrow. You guys can find it. Go to scoreatl.com. We'll have the show links there, and also we'll be tweeting it out, and eventually will be posted on the YouTube page. What's up? Yeah, for sure. And, yeah, I mentioned it. Najee was in the other room, but, yeah, our show yesterday, here were my takeaways, Najee. Thought the high school segment where we talked about the sleepers and contenders. Thought that was really good. We really broke down 7A, kind of what Buford has in its path. Teams like Colquitt County, Milton, who's been just a massive surprise. And then the college segment I thought was great because we got to go into your thought process on these predictions you've been making. Talked about some big upsets. We highlighted Ladd McConkey, which I thought was interesting. And then I said about your NFL segment, Najee calls himself a football nerd. But, yeah, it was like a TI-83 calculator going up against a quantum computer. I mean, Najee just knew everything about kind of all the receiver depth, who's been stepping up, who hasn't, what teams are kind of trending in the right way. And I thought it was really interesting. And then we also, tried to take that 30,000-foot view of some of the trends going on in the NFL, kind of what the next off seasons could look like, and kind of what teams are still building for the potential playoffs or are going to try to just salvage what they have and start planning for the future. So once again, check it out. That is underrated and overlooked. It's on all the podcasts and it's also on our YouTube page. But yeah, so going into the boys basketball, obviously the thing that stands out is the reclassification. There are going to be a lot of intriguing kind of head-to-heads that wouldn't have happened in the past. And you would think that shaking up or shuffling up the classes would kind of be like a neutral effect where it's just like, okay, some teams went there, some teams went there. Some classifications got better, some got smaller. But really, I think the way it's split up, they all got more interesting. I'll say that. And then in Class 7A, you have Wheeler coming in now. So they were in 6A last year. Oh, yeah, sweet. Well, I'll get into that later on. But, yeah, Coach Ashley, welcome on. Can you hear me, Coach? Coach, can you hear me? It's like Coach Ashley's in the weight room. Can you hear me, Coach? Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me? Okay, we're going to go back. All right. I'm not going to stop, guys. All right, so Wheeler, I think they're a big contender, but just think about all these teams that are in 7A. You have Wheeler. You have McEachern. They're a powerhouse. Literally were like national champs a few years ago. Grayson, they're outstanding. Norcross, defending champs. Pebblebrook, Berkmar. Carrollton's in 7A now. You have Osborne. So, and then, of course, Buford is in 7A now. So right there, that is really intriguing. You got a bunch of teams that are true powerhouses going head-to-head this season. 6A. Let's see, Grovetown. They won the state title last season by upsetting, we won't call it an upset, but basically they beat Wheeler in the championship for their first ever state title. So that was a big year for them. They're back. They're stacked and loaded. You also have Etowah. That's been a really solid team year after year. Langston Hughes. That's a team that's won championships. They're in 6A. Alexander, Marist is coming in there. Also Sequoia, they're coming off one of their best seasons ever. 5A. And once again, you can go to scorytail.com and check out the rankings there, boys and girls. 5A, you have Tucker, Mays, Chapel Hill, Kell, Eagles Landing, and Tri-Cities. That Eagles Landing Tri-Cities kind of building rivalry each year. I mean, they've been like the 1 and 2 year after year, and so just gets tougher for them. But I really like other teams like Dutchtown, Statesboro, Creekside even in 5A. They're going to be really fun to watch. I think it's pretty wide open. But, yeah, Tri-Cities and Eagles Landing, of course, coming off major seasons. Tri-Cities 23-5. And then they were able to beat Eagles Landing in last year's state championship. Eagles Landing finished 27-4. So, yeah, they have Mercer commit, David Thomas, and then 6'6" senior Kenneth Brayboy, and then a bunch of juniors. So yeah, they're absolutely stacked. And then Georgia Southern football commit Kamani Cobbs. He transferred in from Woodland Stockbridge after averaging about 8 points a game. So they just kind of returned their nucleus from last year and also added some transfers, which a lot of these teams did. Nearly 200 key significant transfers this year just on the boys' side. Then in 4A, so we mentioned 5A, let's see here. Okay, Miller Grove, of course. Here we go. Oh, yeah, McDonough. McDonough was a team that we thought was going to win the state title last year. They ended up falling in the state championship. Forgot who they lost to, but yeah, they were 26-3 overall. Then you have Pace Academy coming into 4A. They're defending champ. Not defending, but yeah, they've recently won a bunch of basketball state titles. I wonder if is Coach Sherman White still there. I'm not sure. He was the old Miller Grove coach all those years. Outstanding coach. I think he is. Westover, they're going to be really good. Baldwin's always good. Lovett is new to 4A. They've got a ton of talent. Westside Macon, don't count out Central Georgia this season. They've got a ton of outstanding teams. They've been playing circuits all off season. It's a really strong hotbed of talent in those Westside Macons, Northeast, and all those other schools, Houston County, Warner Robins, Lee County. And so Miller Grove, another team to watch in 4A, and then Madison County, and then Holy Innocents. They're always strong. They're coming in to 4A as well. Then in 3A, Sandy Creek, Cross Creek, they've won back-to-back state championships in 3A. Johnson Savannah, true powerhouse. Thomasville is coming into 3A. You have Wesleyan, Salem, Monroe, Daughtry. I can't say it the other way. It's Doherty. I don't know. I'll probably get heat for that. But before I break down these final ones, we haven't taken a break yet. So I'll go ahead and just we're good? All right, we don't need the extra break. All right. I didn't know if it's like we need to do 3 or 2. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, we know Georgia Farm Bureau. So yeah, in 2A, Westside Augusta, great powerhouse, and that's kind of what 2A is going to be dominated by, is all those outstanding Augusta area schools.
So I can hear you right now.
Yeah, can you hear me, Coach? Coach, can you hear me?
I don't know if you all can hear me. I cannot hear you all. I actually have a student trying to help.
Is your volume up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can hear you, Coach.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Any other answers?
Ask him if he can send it to your computer. It might work better than your computer.
We tried my computer.
Didn't work on the computer.
No.
Oh, man.
I tried.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. Well, at least we got to see him. But yeah, he said he could probably come in at 12, but he was busy, but that's too bad. But yeah, in 2A, I told you it's dominated by those Augusta powerhouses. Then you're going to have Putnam County, Sumter, Thompson, Spencer. Spencer is coming off a 30-2 season. They beat Westover 62-42 in the state championship last year. So not only did they win it last year, they put up a 20-point victory in the finals. So watch out for them. And that's number 2, yeah, Spencer in 2A. And then Drew Charter joins 2A. They won the Class A Public state championship last year in a thrilling, yeah, that was a 51-50 win over Warren County. So they come in to 2A, make it that much stronger. And then you also have those private schools that weren't in 2A this last year. They were residing in their own A private, but that's North Cobb Christian, a great program coming in there. And then, of course, Butler is a powerhouse as well, residing in that Augusta area. Then in the Class A Division I, let's see what time it is. Class A Division I, that's the bigger schools in that Class A division. That's going to be Mount Vernon Presbyterian. They're coming off a solid year. They're going to be able to shake things up. Mount Bethel, that's a new program that's really been investing a bunch into all their athletics. We've seen them come in tennis and volleyball, all these different sports. They're fairly new. As I mentioned, they only joined the GHSA, I think, in 2018, but you look at the kind of the results they're producing across the board athletically. They've got a senior duo, a Roanoke commit, James White. He averaged 21 points per game last year, and then Jackson Bell comes in at 19 points per game last season. So two guys averaging close to 20 points a game. They're both going to be back. Social Circle, they fell in the Final Four last year to Drew Charter. They're going to be in that Class A Division I. You also have Kings Ridge. They fell to Green Forest Christian in last year's state championship. So Green Forest is going to be in the Class A Division II. Kings Ridge comes in to Class A Division I. And you got to think just after last year's run and then not having Green Forest in their path, they very easily could come in and kind of hold down that wire-to-wire top ranking. They've got their three top scorers back. Isaac Martin, 16 points a game. Micah Hoover, 16 points a game. And then Zach Thomas, 10 points per game. Also have Jack Thomas, who is probably, I think he shot, 39% from the three-point range last year. And then Woodville Tompkins, Darlington, Tallulah Falls, and Dublin. Also great schools that are going to be in that Class A Division I. And then Green Forest, I mentioned them in that Division II. Wilkinson County, perennial powerhouse out of that middle Georgia area. Dooley County, Warren County, who I mentioned. You have Christian Heritage, one of the few private schools in that Class A Division II. They were 19-7 last year. And they fell to Mount Vernon. And then Calhoun County was really good last year. They were 26-1 after their loss to Social Circle in the Elite Eight. So Social Circle is up in 2A now. They're down in the Class A Division II, so I like them. Hancock Central, outstanding basketball program year after year. Macon County, also outstanding, and then Manchester. So I think a trend we're going to see this year is these smaller middle Georgia, Macon area teams. Watch out for them. I think it's going to be utterly dominated by them. And they've been playing these off-season circuits, a lot of buzz around them. They also have the history, the proven talent, and then with this reclassification, I think it's going to favor them well. So we'll be covering that. Basketball season's right around the corner. We're going to have all that for you at scoreatl.com. Also, this weekend we will be covering the cheerleading state championships. It's actually the 30th anniversary of cheerleading as a sport. And I talked to, who did I talk to? That was Carter. What was her first name? Pam Carter. She is the GHSA cheerleading coordinator and tournament director. So I got to talk to her just about what it was like. It's funny, but trying to convince people that cheerleading is a sport. I don't know if you saw like the movie Bring It On or whatever, that kind of making fun of that, but clearly it is. I mean, the routines, some of the tricks. I mean, from year one to where we're at year 30, I bet if you looked at the difference in how far it's come, it's unbelievable. They're tossing these girls like 30 feet in the air now. It's so difficult. It's so challenging. And then, I mean, I've watched the finals and how it works. It's so fast paced. It's one routine after another. They come in with kind of each have their little mashup of just high energy music, and it's one after another. So the pressure is tremendous on them. And of course, there's teams that have dominated year after year, the Lamberts, Mill Creeks, Peachtree Ridges, South Forsyth schools, North Forsyth, West Forsyth. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, we're going to be covering that, and we will have a preview as well up on scoreatl.com. But we're going to go ahead and take a break now and thank our sponsor, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection that farmers needed. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are our Farm Bureau.
All right, welcome back. And regarding the cheerleading, I found it. This was a funny quote from Pam Carter. She goes, "When I won state in 1995, the little pyramid I won with probably would be in the bottom 3 scores in the state this year, if you look back at time. This sport has developed way beyond what I ever expected." So she was the one that kind of presented the idea, got the teams involved, and then helped make it a GHSA sanctioned sport. So it's really exciting, and that will be held this weekend. So we'll have that preview out then. But we're going to move on to our final guest. It's going to be North Murray head coach Preston Poag. Coach, how's it going?
Going well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well also. So I want to talk about this year's team. I think the first thing that stands out is the offensive production. You guys have put up a school record in points, just completely lit up the scoreboard. So talk a little bit about kind of who's leading that for you guys, the type of system you guys have been running, and just the success you've had this year.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a good many playmakers, but we're a spread offense, but we do a lot of different stuff. I mean, I come from an option background, so I'm a big beer guy too, but we sort of mix it up, but we spread it around. And Seth Griffin's our quarterback. He's been a 3-year starter for him, and he's thrown for over 2,600 yards and 24 touchdowns. He's rushed for almost 700 yards and 14 touchdowns. So he's got 38 touchdowns. He leads AA in passing. He's up at top. He's in 4 or 5 in the state passing. My other playmakers are Judson Petty, who's a junior, who he does a little bit of everything. I mean, I've had him at receiver. He's got over 900 yards receiving. He's a running back that's got 600 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. So a guy that I can just move all over the place to cause defensive trouble. And also Jaden Rice. Jaden Rice is one of the top receivers last year, coming into his senior year, and he's got hurt in the spring, and it took him about 3 or 4 games to get going. But he's a leader in AA in receiving, almost 1,000 yards. So I got 2 guys that possibly could go over 1,000 yards this game in receiving, which I also have a good offensive line that help them do all this stuff. Anchored by Ryan Nathan and Austin Newton, that are two very good linemen. So an offense that's sometimes hard to defend, but just playmakers that's been on the field with a lot of experience.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, the yardage has been impressive. You mentioned Jaden Rice about to go over 1,000 yards receiving, but I mean, you guys have just cashed in and scored a bunch of touchdowns. So talk about that, how important guys like Ryan Matan, Austin Newton, and then just getting into the red zone and not having penalties and just being able to finish off these drives.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, you got to be able to run the football too. I mean, yeah, it's hard in all this day and time with offense. Man, it's hard on defense because you do so much stuff. But you better have a good offensive line. And I think the key in high school is you got to stay healthy too. I mean, your depth is not what you would like in a college or something. But you better have depth up front. But there's guys that stayed healthy all year, which has been good. And the mentality with us, we want to score every time we get the ball, and that don't always happen. But I mean, if you get the culture of your team doing that, you score a lot of points. So.
Yep, and want to talk overall just about this year's schedule. You had Seth Griffith back. You knew you had talented guys and experience. I thought your schedule was really difficult, but in terms of your region, did you expect it to be kind of this deep and this challenging this season? Because I'm looking at it, Rockmart, Medill, Fannin County. I mean, Haralson County is a team that misses out on the playoffs. So I think Region 7 really proved itself this year.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some programs that are used to winning. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you've got a Rockmart who's one of the best in the state. I mean, we played last week and it lit up scoreboard on both sides, but you got a team that can just run. I mean, they can outrun you, and they're just physical team, and they've got a great program. You got a team like Fannin County. It's been the last 5 years, and um, they sort of got that mentality too of used to winning. Of course, you throw Harrelson in there and Model in there, and Model had a great year this year. They got a bunch of great athletes, and I didn't know. Some of these teams have lost. Last year they lost some of their playmakers and stuff. You go into the year, you just don't know, and as the year goes on, you sort of figure out who's going to be the better teams. And I just know this. I mean, there's a bunch of good coaches in this region. You better show up ready to play, or you'll get out coached and you'll get beat.
Yeah, for sure. And so, opening the year, though, you played Dalton week 1. Tyson Greenwave, he's had an outstanding season. What was the kind of takeaway in that game? Just going out there, having some good plays, but just kind of having a guy like him go off and just opening the season with a tough road loss.
I played at Dalton, so I knew it was going to be a tough game. The record back, and I'll play those non-region games. I did a little bit different. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted to try to prepare us for the region schedule and the playoffs when you see speed and stuff like that. So, we played a Dalton team who I thought were very good. I mean, they're in the playoffs, and not only him, but I thought the defense. They have a lot of good defensive guys. They do a lot of good stuff. So on a big stage, I mean, there was a big crowd there, and just for our kids to experience this, especially the guys that hadn't played a whole lot, to get in the experience an atmosphere like that. We don't have those kind of atmospheres in the playoffs, and which has been a lot of big games this year. I mean, we played for the region last week, and a huge crowd, and so we should be ready on that aspect, and we play teams that can run. So it just comes down to. Yeah, I think with us, it just comes down to us not turning the ball over and getting all the field on third down. That's what it's going to come down to, and not give up big plays on special teams. The games we have lost, that's what's happened. So we got to take care of that.
Yep, and so Dalton, they're a 5A school that you guys scheduled right out of the gate. I mean, for them to make it out of that region with Cass, Hiram, Cartersville, Calhoun, it just speaks to what they've been able to do this season. Same sort of thing with Pickens, your next opponent. They've had a great year in 3A. You guys had a 54-50 win, and if my memory serves me, is that the one where, was it Seth had the 8 touchdowns in that game?
Yeah, he had a bunch of touchdowns. That was a good game. Pickens is a good team. Pickens started off slow, but they've caught fire here at the end to make the playoffs. I think they won 4 or 5 straight games to make the playoffs. And
yep, and they'll play Hebron in the first.
Yeah. So they're a good team. Their coach will also.
Yeah. So was that 7 touchdowns through the air? I mean, how did he rack up those 8 scores?
Man, it was just one of those games. I mean, it was just high scoring, and felt like you had to score every time you get the ball, and we scored there at the end to win the game. But we found some things that we liked in the passing game, and sort of stuck to it. And all 4 quarters, we really had a good game.
Absolutely. And then play Ridgeland next, a big victory over them. And then what about the Northwest Whitfield game? Were you guys able to take away from that? Ended up falling right before the region. So you're trying to prepare for that difficult region run. What did you just see in that game, a team like Northwest Whitfield?
Yeah, I mean, that was a game that, we should have been up 28-7 at halftime. When we turned it over a couple of times, they make it 20. They make it, I think, 14-7. We drive it all the way down in the last minute. We throw a pick in the end zone. So it should have been it sort of taught us, man, we can't, we're not good enough to do that kind of stuff, man. We can't turn the ball over when we in the red zone and going in to score. It's just one of those games. I think it was the lowest scoring we had all year, but we just had opportunities, just didn't take advantage of it. And just taught our kids, man, we got to take care of the ball, and when we get down there, we got to score.
Yep, and then Haralson County to open it, 40-29 win. Then you had that kind of rivalry game against Murray County, 49-0. Gordon Central, 63-13. So what did you just see from your offense? And, I mean, this is the highest scoring unit you guys have ever had. So, I mean, how kind of unique has this year been just in terms of your ability to light up the scoreboard?
I think it's been. I mean, in about every game except the Northwest game, but we've been able to score on, some of those teams. You go into games like that in years past, you know you're the favorite and you got to play good to beat them. But we took care of business on those teams, and a lot of those games our starters only played that. So I felt like we prepared, and we as a coach, you sort of sometimes get nervous about teams. You think everybody's gonna say you're gonna beat real bad, but I think we just sort of took care of business on those games and set us up for the remainder of the season.
Yes, sir. And then what did you see from Judson Petty just this season, his junior year?
Sorry I missed on lad, Coach.
No,
No.
that's okay. Uh, you know, Justin Petty, I'll give you a great example for him. I mean, he played receiver. He, started the season, we had him at running back, and then we played some other guys at running back, put him at receiver because he's such a good receiver too. And, we go into the model game, and we sort of we started a kid who didn't fumble, so I thought, man, we're gonna have to put Petty in there, and we did. And man, what a game he had! He just the first play, we're in a little trap with him. He runs it for like 40-something yards for a touchdown, and that's the game he had a bunch of yards rushing and called it and had a pick. I mean, did all sorts of stuff. But what a great kid! I mean, our toughest kid, our hardest worker in the weight room. In that game against Model, I told him in the second half, I said, you got to get ready. I mean, I'm going to give the ball to you. And the only thing he told me was, give it to me. And I did. And, it was a big part of winning that game. And we established the run and did a lot of things.
Yep, he was huge in that model game. That set you guys up to potentially win the region. You guys squared out with the Rockmar in that last game, fall short. And so that left three teams at 6-4 overall and 4-2 in the region, and now you guys will be facing off with a really good Fellowship Christian team in the first round. So, just what do you think, just heading into that matchup, about what you've seen from your guys this year, and what it's going to take in the first round to keep this season going?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to a Fellowship team, which I'm very familiar with Fellowship. When I was at Christian Heritage, we played Fellowship 6 times in 5 years. We played them 2 times.
Yep.
Very well coached. They do a great job on both sides of the ball. They're old school on offense. I mean, I'm a big eye guy, and they still in the eye and a lot of things, but you got a really good quarterback that does things and just very sound. I mean, they don't make many mistakes. And on defense, they do a lot of different stuff. They're 4-2-5, but they like to move around and get you uncomfortable on offense. So, we got to take care of that, take care of the ball like with any game, and we got to establish running the ball and just mix it up and keep our defense off the field. When the defense has got to get off the field. I mean, we struggle with some games on defense, but man, we've had some really good games on defense too. So we just got to be able to get off the field and not give up any touchdowns on special teams. No big plays on special teams, and it'll be a really good game. It's an evenly matched game, so it'll be a good one to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the matchups that stuck out to me, and we will be covering it closely this weekend. I do want to ask you, though, about Lad McConkey and kind of his impact on your program, that really special senior season he had, and then tell us a little bit about what his recruitment process was like. Just as his high school coach, it seems like you were just telling everyone, like, hey, I have this guy that's really good. So, I mean, was it falling on deaf ears? Did you have to just continue to show the results in the film? I mean, what happened with that?
I mean, we talked to so many people, but, I think the thing with Ladd, they would come look at him, and Ladd's not a real big guy. So, I think a lot of them would come and talk to him and think, well, we'll see. And, they'd come back and say, we couldn't get him past because of his size. And, they wouldn't listen to me because it's nothing with the size. I mean, that guy can run. I mean, not just fast, but they always ask the question of, what is he going to do when the SEC linebacker or a corner gets in his face? Can he get off of it? He's so little. I said, absolutely. They won't touch him. I mean, and people have seen that. But he was recruited. A lot of what I say 1AA teams. They all loved him, and even some of those coaches that offered him, and when he found out he was going to Georgia, I thought, you need to talk to him, Coach. He'll never play at Georgia. I said, yes, he will. So it was just a frustrating type of deal, and the process, but it all worked out for me. You know, when Kirby came here, and then Tennessee came the next day, and Vandy came, and Missouri liked him. So a lot of them jumped on him at the very end, but you know, a lot of schools missed on him because of his size. I mean, what a great kid! I mean, he played everything for me. You know, he was a great receiver the first 3 years. I put him at quarterback the senior year. Played great defense for me. And great returner. I mean, a kid that scored every which way you can. The playoff game, I think second round, he threw one, ran a return back, picked one for a touchdown. Just crazy stuff. But I mean, what a humble kid though. If you talk to him, even now, I mean, you wouldn't think he's the same kid he's always been, and just a great one to coach. And you know, as a head coach, a lot of things that I don't remember, but one thing with Ladd, I remember walking off that last game winning the Elite Eight against Jenkins, and he's just brokenhearted, man, walking off the field, and just a guy that put it all out there, and he still does it today, and he's going to keep getting better for him too.
Yeah, well, I would say you are vindicated in what he's been able to do with Georgia. It's been so exciting. It really has, and I just think it's such a great example of just looking at someone's complete body of work and really having a proper evaluation. And some of the people said, oh, he won't play at Georgia. It's like, well, why? Explain it. You can't just dismiss it without really showing the evidence. But what's it like just being in that kind of Chattanooga area in terms of the teams that are coming? Let's say you're almost like bordering two states up there. So do you typically get a lot of the Tennessee teams coming in with interest?
Yeah, I mean, some. It just depends. I mean, you have some that come all the time, and then you have some that just spot doing it. But yeah, we get a lot of interest. I mean, Ladd's not the only one. We got in the big time. I mean, we got Luke Griffin who plays at Missouri, which he's done a really good job. But they all want to talk about Ladd when they come in here, though. They always want to ask, you got any more Ladds? And I said, man, I wish 4 or 5 Ladds. But you know, it's been good for the program. It's been good for these kids that play here too. I mean, you know, all these high school football recruiting so crazy now, and all the different star ratings, and you know, they say Ladd was a 2-star. Ladd was a no star until Georgia. So I mean, they try to jump on the bandwagon on that, but it was not. It didn't have a star. But it just shows these kids here that, man, if you work hard and have the ability, I mean, it's hard to play at that level, but if you have the ability, man, it doesn't matter how big you are. If you can run and work hard and do everything right, it just helps the whole program.
Absolutely, and just continues to. And seriously, what a perfect fit it's been for him. Gets the national championship, first one since 1980 at Georgia. He's there for it. He's contributing as a redshirt freshman, and then this season, I mean, how exciting. So I think that's really great.
Yeah, he might get him another ring this year too.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. If he continues balling out like that and that defense keeps playing well, very much could. So, yeah, it's just been so exciting. And I do think that impact, though, just really getting on the map that year, the big win over Calhoun, I know that was really important too. I mean, I mention it all the time. That area, you look at how competitive across the classifications, all the regions that feature teams from that area have been. It's like there's really a lot of depth, and it seems just a great community up there just supporting all these programs.
Yeah, it's a good atmosphere, great community. A lot of people get involved to help out, but you know, that Calhoun game was a great game for us. And you know, the year before we had them 10-0 at halftime, and they come back and beat us. But what a great experience for the program, and you know, get the region title that year.
Yeah, because that was a true team win. That wasn't like some close game. You guys really came out and beat them. I think that's why it caught everyone's attention when you guys did beat Calhoun in 2019. Wasn't it like 31-7?
31-7, and we fumbled on their 1-yard line. It was a good night for us.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck this week. That will be an outstanding matchup with Fellowship Christian. I know you guys are going to be fired up for it, so best of luck, and go Mountaineers.
All right, thanks. Go Nears.
Go Nears. All right. So that was awesome. We will be, as I mentioned, checking in on that one. It will be one of our feature games on the bottom of the scoreboard as we broadcast live from the Lovett and Westminster playoff game. I think that one's going to be really fun. What a rivalry that is, the two private schools. I think we're going to try to get some stats for the broadcast just on how many state championships across the board those two schools have won over the year. I mean, I've seen them both win a football state championship, but man, all the other sports, it's really insane. Like, I'm talking, they'll win 20 state championships in like one school year, just dominating cross country, golf, tennis, basketball. I mean, it's been lacrosse. So that'll be a fun, really good 4A matchup this weekend. I'm excited. And of course, it will be split up to Saturday with 7A, 5A, and 3A. Those will be the Saturday games, and then Class A Division I, Class A Division II, Class 2A, Class 4A, and Class 6A will be on Friday. So we'll have all that, the brackets updated. You can go to scorytail.com, and also we will be back tomorrow for Keeping It Real with Najee Wilkins. Thank you so much. Have a good one.